Nisha Shelton.
And this is Kevin Shelton.
Welcome back to the Marriage and Real Estate Podcast.
Welcome back.
We got a new little setup here.
We do. We're working some stuff out, so we want to get you guys feedback on how you like it.
I like it.
I like it a lot too. I think it feels really homey.
So no feedback necessary. We like it. I'm just saying.
You don't like all that extra.
I'm just saying we don't need feedback because we like the setup.
No, that makes sense.
So we always say what we're gonna do, and most of the time it happens. So I'd like to say that in 2022, we really want to focus on bringing more couples on the podcast that are like you, right? So you guys get to hear a lot about who we are and what we're doing and what's going on in our world of marriage and real estate. But we felt like it was time to talk to other couples to see who they are, where they are, and perhaps you might resonate with somebody else, right?
No, I agree. I agree 1,000%.
Yeah. So I'm excited to add more couples that are at the beginning of their real estate journey, some seasoned couples in their real estate journey, and you probably will see some familiar faces. So I'm looking forward to bringing back other couples that we have had on the podcast and asking them about their real estate journey too. So we hope that format will resonate with you all. I know that I'm super excited about it, so we'll see what we come up with.
Yeah, and I think we always get really good feedback on the guest episodes. The conversations kind of go on forever, and it ends up dropping a lot of great gems and nuggets when you get the feedback from other couples, right? I think learning about other people's journeys not only gives us great information, but I think it gives the audience a different perspective. So it's cool.
True. But today, you got us. Just us. And so we've been in this pandemic for going on, 2 years?
Yeah. I actually 2 years to the date. Like, it's the end of January, coming up on the end of January.
No, it was in February that it got shut down.
Oh, it was March. It was like
it
was March. Okay, so then it will be 2 years. In a couple
so
months.
We're coming up on 2 years in the pandemic. Life looks different.
Mm-hmm.
Some people really made some serious gains and wins during the pandemic, and other people had serious losses during the pandemic. And our hearts go out to everybody who lost a life due to COVID-19. But we had a pretty good 2 years.
I mean, we had a crazy up and down 2 years. I think that when the pandemic first started, because we had a baby right before, it was almost like it was good the world slowed down so we could kind of catch up having a new baby. Of course, you lost family and had, severe sickness in your family. And we have a lot of friends that also had the same thing in their family. So those parts were definitely super sad. I think spending the time together at home, early in the pandemic, everybody kind of went crazy. Clubhouse was big because everybody's stuck in the house. And we all kind of had to find ways to cope. Being in Texas, very soon after, maybe like about 3 months after, everybody started getting back out and the world started opening back up. And then we kind of have found a new normal. The first time, here recently, our household got affected by COVID and got infected by COVID, was here recently. And we were kind of always super nervous and anxious about it hitting home and when that was going to happen. And I think when it finally did, thankfully, we had mild symptoms, and we're thankful for our small children and everything, and that we had the ability to quarantine, especially having businesses and our teams were affected and the whole nine. But it was a scary prospect. I know you were like super, super nervous and you got no symptoms. That was the crazy part about it. Like, you were like, oh my God, what if we all get COVID? And then when we finally got COVID, you ain't even cough. You ain't even have like.
Yeah, I feel like my concern about COVID was more of we don't know how it'll affect
What
each
it'll be.
person, right?
Yeah.
So there's people that were seemingly healthy that lost their lives to COVID, and then there were other people who are the most unhealthiest people and they
Had no
easily,
symptoms. Yeah.
skate through COVID. And so not knowing how it would affect each one of my family members was probably the most scariest part.
Yeah.
So that I think that's the only place where my fear lied. Other than that, we've been out.
No, that's true. I mean, and we vaxxed and
We
stuff.
are vaxxed.
So sounds like waxed.
We are vaxxed.
No, just vaxxed sounds like waxed in general.
They are
But
rhyming words. Good job, Kevin.
I hate you. But no, so we have been out. Can't say that we haven't.
Yeah.
As far as the businesses go, it's been kind of an up and down journey in how we navigate those things from on the construction side, whether it's materials or job sites or cleanliness or things like that. On the sales side, I know it's been virtual open houses and fucking showings and trying to navigate those
So
worlds.
let's tell me about how COVID affected the Park Street side of the business. Good
The,
and bad.
so the bad part was availability and prices are crazy.
Yep.
Right.
Of
So being able to get
materials.
everything from shingles to granite to carpet to wood floors. I mean, it's just like it's like going to the bread aisle or the toilet paper aisle in the middle of COVID, right? It's like crazy. Now on the good side is inventory is down and we sell new construction houses. So the sales side has been really good. It's just getting to the finished product that makes it harder.
Well, and because we are a smaller developer, a smaller builder, we don't have as much access. And so if you think about the larger companies, they have access to large contracts and large materials, and we don't have that as much. And so what we've had to do is limit our selections. So before we created these packages that you could choose from, color schemes and flooring, and now it's really like whatever's available is kind of what we get. And I mean, it's not horrible, but it's about speed in our industry for sure. So the longer we have to wait for finishes or specific products, the longer we hold on to a project, the less money we make on the back end. And so we've had to limit severely what the selections are in our new construction stuff, right? So you could choose floors, you could choose countertops.
You could choose tile, you could choose carpet, you could choose
tile like
paint at a point.
But now, what is it?
Oh,
that
but
you
now
I'm talking about now. Yeah, what is it?
Oh,
that
I
you can choose?
mean, you might get one to two choices on one type of tile, and then 1 to 2 choices on a type of counter. That's about it.
Yeah.
Because even finding paint is hard.
Wow.
Right. So we go all over the city just to be able to find paint to paint the houses. And when we paint them, like when we buy the paint, we buy in bulk because we got to get all the paint for every house that we building at the same time.
Yeah. And from a sales perspective, it's been because I am the listing agent, inventory is down all across the country, right? So inventory is down all across the country, and then which means that there's more people looking for houses than there are houses available, which is a great problem to have for us in new construction. And so we don't have very much competition. Our product in the neighborhood that we're in, I think, is top notch. We've seen lots of other builders and developers come into our area and build a very similar product to us, but nobody's Park Street, just FYI, and that's facts. But nobody's Park Street, and so it's been a good ride from the sales perspective. And the one thing we know about real estate and the stock market is that it's going to do this, is there's going to be highs,
and
there's going to be lows, there's going to be peaks, and there's going to be valleys. And so now we're positioning ourselves, right now we're at a peak, we're steady climbing. We have lots of projects coming. However, what we're doing in this peak time is positioning ourselves for the valleys, right? So doing affordable housing, getting city and government contracts,
Yep.
which are all things that are market resilient, are build on your own lot program, things that people will always have money.
Yep.
Government so far in the US will be giving out money like candy on Halloween. So we just need to position ourselves to take advantage of all of those things. So right now the free market is good. Capitalism, let's go. And then when when the bottom falls out of all of that and the government has to fix and, take care of everything, then we'll be positioned to take advantage of those opportunities too.
Which I think is just really studying history, though. If you look at some of the other businesses that have been around 20, 30, 60 years, they've done the same thing. So honestly, what we're seeing right now in our generation is it's the first real test for millennials that started their business in the last 10 years. You know what I mean? I think that we have to look to history to learn how to navigate the future to a lot of degrees. And while we have technology and we have all these other things, change is the constant.
Yeah.
It'll always change, and you always have to, like you say, pivot or panic. And we made a decision very early to always pivot and not to panic because we knew we want to do this for the long ride, right? So no, I mean, I'm still optimistic. I'm still super excited. I still have a lot of faith and belief, not only in the country, in our state, and our market, especially hyper locally. Yeah, I'm ready to fight the battles.
Yeah, so that's the pandemic in real estate for our experience, right? What about family? How has the pandemic? This is the Marriage and Real Estate Podcast. How has the pandemic? Do you feel like the pandemic affected us as a family?
A combination of ways. It's really hard running a business watching kids. So school and care has been a big issue in our household. I know that especially with children at varying age, like, Kayla did homeschool for a whole year and a half. That was pretty hard, grades dip, stuff like that. And going into high school, that creates kind of it's almost like a disadvantage, for grade wise. As far as our younger children, thankfully, their school never really closed or closed very little. So we were thankful to be essential workers and have care so that we could still operate our business even in the times of the biggest lockdowns. I've looked at it, just me personally, as an opportunity to grow closer. I think spend more time together. Even when we were on quarantine, I really enjoyed the rest, and I really enjoyed the time with the kids. We kind of turned our backyard into an oasis, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, that's my take. What's your take?
So you sound so humdrummy about it all. There was some good stuff in there too.
Everything I said was good stuff.
Okay.
Why do I sound humdrummy? Maybe it's just my tone and pitch.
Perhaps.
I feel like this is an interview, not a conversation.
Well, because you're not being very conversational, and I'm trying to carry this
asking
podcast
me direct
today.
questions, and I'm answering them.
All right, I'll just stop.
I love you.
Okay. So that's not gonna work. So like I said, let me do what I'm doing.
Okay, you keep on carrying the heavy load.
Don't worry about it, I got you. You carry the heavy load in other areas. I'll do this. We potty trained our
That's true.
3-year-old because of the pandemic. It was definitely something that we kept putting off. There was lots of judgment out there about my 3-year-old not being potty trained.
That's
and
true.
As soon as the pandemic hit early on, that was a good opportunity to do that. And so we did like the 3-day potty training method.
Yep.
If you want to know more about it, there's a ebook I can send to you. You're probably not even supposed to do that, but somebody sent it to me.
You said I can send to you? Who are you sending it to? People who reach out.
People who reach out on the podcast and they're like, hey, you said something about a 3-day potty training method. That.
Oh, I'm with you. Okay.
So it was pretty intense, and you do have to stop your life essentially to take the time to implement this method, but it worked out well for us, at least for this kid. So we'll have to try again with the newest baby to see if that works for him. But that was a good opportunity to do that. It was really good reprieve. 2019 was a challenging year for us. And so I feel like, and I say this all the time, the Lord stopped the world for us to catch up. You know what I mean? The Lord stopped the world for us to catch up mentally, emotionally, familially, like with one another, to reconnect with one another, because all we had was each other. And I feel like we were super blessed because the pandemic did one or two things to marriages. It either brought you closer in your marriage,
I
or
took you apart.
it tore you apart, right? And so we definitely got closer during the pandemic, and we spend so much time with each other anyway. But I'm sure a few of our guests can attest to, like, the pandemic being really hard on your marriage, or the pandemic being really good for your marriage. And for us, it was really good for our marriage. And so I thought that was really awesome too. So I'm more like a silver lining kind of person. And the silver lining for me in a bad situation, which, COVID-19 was that it really cataclysmically changed our family and our business in a positive way.
No, I definitely agree with that. Completely side note. So you know how you have your thing with circles or whatever?
Yeah.
So on the side of this thing, it's like a bunch of little beads.
Oh.
It is throwing me off. Like, I'm like staring at it. I'm like, oh, circles.
Ooh, don't show it to me. Are you gonna show it to me? Of course you are. Oh yeah. It's not too bad, but I see what you mean.
Oh, but it just caught me, and I thought of you, and it's just like,
there's a word. It's a phobia. Somebody and I've googled it before.
Cyclophobia or something.
But there's a phobia that really exists of circles, in a tight pattern, and really it's primal. So typically in the wild, if you see something with that particular pattern, then that means that it's dangerous. So it's interesting that
is that what
it is?
Is that what the basis of that is?
Yep. Think about a beehive, mold when it's gathered in those kinds of.
Never thought about it like
dangerous.
that.
I googled it because I was like, this has got to be a thing, and I cannot be the. There it is, circle patterns. What is
Let's see what it is.
It is called something trypophobia.
Trypophobia.
Ooh, it's the worst. Don't click on images.
Don't click on images.
I'm going to lose
don't.
You would.
Literally don't.
You would.
She'll
totally
lose her
do that.
shit. Don't do it.
Trypophobia. So if you want to see what that is, the fear of circles in a repeating pattern, then you should Google it and look at the images, and it will. Okay, if you anything like me, it'll mess you up for sure.
No, I mean, all in all, I'm gonna do the wrap up this week. You did all the heavy lifting.
You've been super random.
I'm gonna do the wrap up this week.
We should have did the episode the way I said we did the episode.
How was that again?
Where we
ask the questions and
yeah.
Okay, next week.
Yeah, next week.
Next week we'll have guests.
Next week we'll have guests.
Look forward to more guests.
That, we'll have more guests.
More stuff. No more random topics. Very little just us. But until then, what you got? This is Marriage and Real Estate Podcast. I'm Kevin.
I'm Aisha.
We out.